Today we're going to be covering 3 Mechanologist heroes, Maxx, Data Doll, and Teklovossen. All these heroes so far are struggling in Silver Age. They have some of the worst win rates, but we are going to be trying our best today. Using Maxx, we can pay 2 and create a Hyperdriver token with 2 Steam counters. We can only activate this if we boosted this turn, so this deck will need to have a lot of boost cards. And Hyperdrivers you control have Crank, where you can remove one of the counters and get an action point off of it. This pairs well with Banksy, where you can pay 1 to attack for 3. You can only activate if you crank this turn. So it works really well with the Hyperdriver. You can pitch a blue, pay 2 for the Hyperdriver, crank it, and then have 1 left over, send your Banksy. And then when this hits, you put a Steam counter back on an item you control with Crank. So you can just put the Steam counter back on the Hyperdriver. The rest of our equipment is just blocking plus Blossom of Spring, so nothing special here. But the deck itself is really revolving around boost. We have a couple Hyperdrivers that we actually will play in the deck just because they synergize well. Everything else here is just red aggro with a good blue base to be able to pitch, because this deck needs to pitch more than other aggro decks because of the way that the curve works between the hero power and Banksy. We also get to play some pretty cool boost cards, right? Because we have cards like Rev Up, where if you control Hyperdriver, so think about the token that would be in play, this costs 1 less to play, which puts it on par with Red Throttle. Red Throttle, 0 to 16 and Zipper Hit are like basically the premier boost cards. So cards like Rev Up and Jumpstart become mirrors of them if you have a token in play. We also have some other payoffs with Quick Fire and Recharge. These are just ways to get some benefit out of having these Hyperdrivers on the table. So cards like Big Shot or Backup Protocol Red are very easy to use. Like, you will have the ability to go wide enough and have enough resources to play all these kinds of cards. We have Boom Grenade as a way to condense some damage, and also Crank, which is actually pretty relevant for cards like Banksy. You can just sidestep using the hero text and just play the Boom Grenade and crank it if you want to use a Banksy within a turn. Same goes for Backup Protocol Red. And so the deck is just punching hard and fast. If you ever do need to block, a lot of these cards do block 3, so you can, just block with 2 cards, maybe send a Throttle, float a resource off of your Hyperdriver, and then maybe make another Hyperdriver off of Max's ability, or maybe play another 2 costs. So you can definitely have some good flexibility if you need a block, which will happen a lot in this format. Our sideboard is Burn Rubber into more Fatigue style decks. We need to push even more damage, have more of these big Max V style chain enders, and to pair with that, you can play cards like Scramble Pulse to make their armor worse. Same goes for Payload. Into aggro decks, we have Combustible Courier to try to raise damage with them, and then also Firewall to stop efficient on hits like Snatch. And then we're running Arcane Barrier 3. In the Kano here, we're going first. I'm kind of thinking about just passing priority, seeing if the Kano wants to go off the top of the deck. If the Kano goes off the top of the deck, we have an insanely gas hand that we can just pressure them with. You could also make the argument that you could boost on turn 1 and then just activate Maxx here. It's kind of difficult for me. I think that we probably get more equity just passing priority here. I think now that they're down to 3 cards, I'm going to pressure damage here. So they block for 5. That's really interesting. So we know that, like, basically the floodgates are open. Like, we can just go ahead and just push damage here. They block for 3, which is important because it means that we can use Maxx, and then we could pop the Blossom and then send the Banksy, at which point we get the Hyperdriver counter back and we just push 3 more damage. We put the T-Bone in Arsenal for next turn. My opponent is now down to 10. We didn't take any damage on turn 0. All right, so they're just going to send Photon Splicing. This is going to come in for, I believe this is for 5. I think we're low enough that I'm kind of leaning towards this pressure and everything face. Okay, so we get a block for 3. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to play the Jumpstart. The Jumpstart will come in for 3. And then we're going to send the Big Bertha. They're going to say no blocks here. I'll be kind of interested if they de-react this. I did see an Absorb pitched on turn 1. Okay, so they do have Absorb. I'm overall not the biggest fan of Absorb. I think it's like kind of costly for what it does. Like, my opponent's gonna have to block out this turn. They're not comboing me, so the extra +2 on the Arcane doesn't really actually amount to much in my opinion. Okay, so they actually have a 2 block in their hand. So we're gonna push the Boom Grenade this turn, which is pretty nuts. We don't even have to commit anything else. They hit a Photon Splice on the top, that's fine. That just comes in for, what, +2, +3, it comes in for 5. But now they're going to 2. Which, that's more important. Them being a 2 is a pretty big deal. They have to basically combo in response to basically anything that we do from here on out. Unfortunately, this hand gives up too many cards before I can actually attack them, which is kind of an issue. I'm gonna go ahead and take the 1 from the overflow, it's fine. And I'm really trying to figure this out because I want to hold back some resources and maybe a card. But the difficult thing is that both of these care about me dumping my whole hand. Like, I could do it, but then everything's so telegraphed. Sure, this comes in for 11 and they're probably dead, but like, I have no resources left in hand, and they can just go off and kill me in response. So I think we're gonna have to slow roll this. So I think what we're gonna do here is we're going to split the damage up so that we get some blocking first. Looks like they're just going off in response, which is kind of interesting. All right, so we got a block for 6. If I knew that they had, you know, a bunch of reds in hand, I would have just tapped out. I think that they actually do have enough 0 cost in this deck that I kind of don't just want to pass for free. It's kind of a tough call to make. I'm gonna run a gambit though and just pay the 2, because I mean, actually doing the hyperdriver and the crank is actually like pretty resource inefficient. I might just rather have the 1 for 4 pump in arsenal. I'm making some questionable lines here. If they have like a 2 block, like we just punted for no reason. I'm more worried if they have a 0 cost. If they have a 0 cost they can resolve, that's when this sucks. Our hand is good though. We have T-Bone as an opener. It's gonna do what we want it to do. Yeah, they have twining. Yeah, that's so unfortunate. We could have definitely played around that for sure. We're gonna go ahead and just AB3 it and just hope that their next hand doesn't have anything super crazy. Mainly a question, we want to play the recharge here or not. I'm leaning towards yes. So they play the Cindering Foresight. They leave 1 card on top. They put 1 on the bottom. We come in for 7 here, which is good. It takes these 2 cards. We can just play the Hyperdriver from hand and just send Banksy if we want. We also have the option to use Max's Hyperdriver here instead. I'm kind of leaning towards leaving the 1 resource open in case if they actually were going to play the top card of their deck, and then we'll just clear out the last card from hand. They actually get really lucky because we close the chain so they get to live. The Exploding Aether would have been not enough to block, so a bit unfortunate, but here we are. This hand is very good, so we can open up by boosting 0 to 60. Absorbent Aether, that's fine with us. Kind of want to just send the 0 to 60 here. This is a weird spot to be in. I guess actually what makes the most sense here would be playing the back protocol red. And then we can just go rebuy the red 0 to 60, which is ideally what we want here. Because with this, we present actual breakpoints that just get us there. We're going to send 4 into 4. And now the Kano just kind of has to go off in response to this. And then we have 2 blues here. So whatever they're ripping, we're going to be able to prevent. And it looks like they're just going to scoop it up there. Yeah, like we 100% have that. I mean, even if they hit like a good red spell off the top, we can AB3 twice. Data Doll wants you to banish off the top of your deck. Whenever a Mechanologist item with cost 2 or less is put in your banish zone from your deck, you put it in the arena. The difficult part of playing her in Silver Age is that she was never good in any format. However, in Blitz, you added cards like Teklo Foundry Heart where you could pay 1 and then banish the top 2 cards of your deck to make resources, and that was really good because you could essentially cheat 2 items into play. She also had a specialization that was a Majestic, which was very powerful when you hit it, but the problem is that we don't get that in Silver Age. We're trying to make up for this by having as many items as we can play. We do get our Boom Grenades, which is really good. We have our backup protocols, also fantastic. And we're trying to supplement it with a couple more cards. So we have Dissolving Shield to block some damage, Hadron Collider for pushing damage, and then Dissipation Shield also for preventing damage. Everything else here is going to be a boost card to try to rip the cards off the top of the deck because we just want to be hitting items. So the games where you hit all items every single boost and only draw boost cards in your hand, the deck will function well. But the intellect of 3 means you're only drawing 3 cards a turn, which does inherently hinder the deck. We have Soup Up as a way to cash in our cards with Crank that are about to leave the battlefield in our turn, or if we have a card with Crank that leaves, and this just becomes 0 for 4. This is like the only non-boost attack that I wanted to put in the deck. Unfortunately, Symbiosis Shot I think would be so good in Data Doll if it were not a dash specialization. We have to play Teklo Pistol, although the way that this card works is that it's not once per turn. So if you generate extra action points by, let's say, banishing Crank items off the top of your deck, putting them into the arena, and then removing the counter off of them, you can reload and fire the pistol multiple times in a single turn. So people who are familiar with dash will know this. But if you have these extra action points, this works the same as Symbiosis Shot. It's not once per turn. So if you have the resources, you can get some good stuff where you can banish these Crank cards, and then if you have a blue in hand and you don't have anything else to do, you can just reload this and fire it a couple times and hopefully make up for some of the damage. And then finally, we also have Optical Monocle. This is like probably the best one to hit because it will help you really dig to make sure you're only hitting items off the top when you're boosting. Our sideboard is going to have an additional Dissolving Shield for Arcane decks or decks that just have on hits that we need to be preventing, Payload and Convention Amplifier into Fatigue decks, and then Firewall once again into like aggro decks with good quality on hits. And we're only running Arcane Barrier 2 because I just don't really have the resource curve out to be able to be paying for Arcane Barrier 3 in my opinion. And with Intellect 3, you can't really afford to be paying for Arcane Barrier all that much, so it's really just there as a fallback in case if there are ever extra cards in your hand and you need to just block. Putting into Dash here, we kind of wish we could go first. I think this is a deck that really benefits from getting to go on the play. We could have at least just played the Optical Monocle and passed. It looks like the Dash is starting actually with Convention Amplifier in play, which is pretty interesting. And I'm probably guessing we're going to get chunked for a ton of our life total. I mean, this already looks kind of over. That's crazy. What is this? This is going to be, I think, 12? A 12 dominant turn 0. Only Silver Age things. Okay, so yeah, I guess we're gonna go and take 12. And then our turn is probably gonna be like having 3 items and passing back. So just, you know, normal stuff happening out here. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll boost the 0 to 60, hope to rip an item. We don't rip an item, that's kind of unfortunate. We're gonna go ahead and play the Optical Monocle. And then just Arsenal the Boom Grenade. We could hypothetically push the Boom Grenade on a future turn. With 3 cards, it's always going to be kind of hard, but there is a chance. This hand's kind of okay. We would obviously always like 3 boost cards. The items are technically usually bricks in the hand, but this could have been like 3 items. So, I mean, this is actually serviceable, especially because the Sprocket Rocket will probably come in for 4. All right, looks like they actually kind of brick here. They're just going to go ahead and send payload for 7. I'm kind of inclined to use these 2 here. That way we could reuse them on a Talishar, and we can at least soak a little bit of the life total. I don't want to accidentally die to like a 4-card hand with Convention Amplifier out, but that may end up happening. I guess we'll see. We'll have to hit like a Dissolving Shield or something. So we're going to go ahead, start using the Monocle. We're going to opt any boost attacks to the bottom. Keep going. Wow, this is a bad run so far. All right, we'll leave that one on top, I guess. We can go ahead and crank the Boom Grenade, and then I guess we'll play the Sprocket Rocket. This will come in for 4. We could crank the Hadron Collider, but I kind of don't think that we need to. And this is being pretty decent because we end up putting 2 breakpoints on this turn. My opponent's is going to take the damage, but we could have sent the 0 to 60 and it would come in for 7, which is actually pretty solid. We're just going to go ahead and use the last Monocle trigger here. See if we can find another item. We did find a Backer Protocol red at 6. When they have Amplifier out, I feel like we're probably staring down lethal. This was kind of impressive though. I mean, the Boom Grenade mixed with the Hadron Collider. Like if we got to maybe have 3 boost cards this turn, maybe we could have pulled it out. We can't actually present lethal, which is kind of sick actually, because we can go ahead and use the Blossom. And then we can send the pistol twice, but the only thing with doing that is that my opponent would get to reblock with the Blade Beckoners. So it's actually just going to be strictly better for us to go grab a 0 to 60 and then boost again. Hopefully we hit an item. We actually do. That's pretty sweet. And it's a Boom Grenade as well. So my opponent would go to 1 if they just put a 3 block in front of this. If there ever was a world where we could actually get back in this game, it would be probably with this. I'm saying all this like we're not about to just draw 3 items in our next hand. So this is all kind of pointless. I'm going to 1 with the on hit happening. Oh man, if we had just had like a resource card or something that turn and we could have actually sent the pistol twice, it would have been crazy. They're going to play Red Boom Grenade. Yeah, this is cooked. This is over. So if we hit the Dissolving Shield off the top, maybe we could have got there. This is brutal because yeah, this just doesn't get around it. We really need to hit this Dissolving Shield. If we'd hit the Dissolving Shield off the top, this actually would have been pretty good. But the main issue is, I'm going to 1 here. I think we're just going to play a Dissolving Shield and pass. So we're going to go ahead and float 2 Prevention off of this. And then I guess we're going to block with the Soup Up and then we'll Galvanize it. We'll get to carry over the 2 Prevention. I really just want to be able to hold on to the Zipper Hit in the blue. If we can do this, I think we actually can pull this out. I'm going to play Rotary Ram. That's not a good sign for us. Yeah, Outpace probably should do it here. That'll do it. Honestly, kind of a close game. If we just hit like a Dissolving Shield or something, we could have stopped that Red Boom Grenade. I actually think we could have got back in here, but this is pretty stereotypical of how this deck will play. Like, it's not a super strong deck by any means necessary. That turn 1 was also pretty insane that we took 12, so, you know, it is what it is. And finally, to round it out, we have Teklovossen, where you can play Evos from your Banished Zone. This was a newer mechanic for Bright Lights, where they introduced a way to upgrade your equipment, which has only been done with the Evos. Once per turn instant, you can pay 3 and you can play your next Evo as if it were an instant. So you can play it, let's say, during your opponent's turn, or you can play an Evo that doesn't have Go Again with Go Again in essence and air quotes because it's being played as an instant. And then when you do, you can draw a card, which is good because it just refunds you back that blue. So we have all of our base equipments. These have one time per use effects that you can use before you transform into them. It's usually helpful to do so. So we have all of our cogwork bases, and then we have our Teklo leveler. Our Teklo leveler is our payoff for having these evos attached, where normally this is a 3 cost 2 attack without going in, really bad. But once you equip your evos, it becomes a lot better. Once you go to 2 or more, now all of a sudden it costs 1. And when you go to 3 or more, it gets go again. And then when you have 4, it gets +1. So at the very end, this will be a 1 for 3 weapon with go again. Very, very good stuff. We're playing the evos that are going to be the easiest to attach. That's going to be these block 2 yellow 0 cost evos. These really don't have very good effects. Some of them are marginal, and every once in a while you can activate them and get something beneficial out of them. But for the most part, the reason why these are here is that these are 0 cost evos that are just easy to dump on the field when you banish them. So we're playing a boost style list. That way we can dump all these evos into the banish, and then we can just play them, drop it on one of our bases, and then you don't pay any resources for this. And then once you have all these out, then cards like Liquid Cool Mayhem and Mechanical Strength are very powerful. And then the final turns of the game, when you're done playing these cards, or you just need to cash them in, you can just go ahead and block with all of them and get your full block out of them. Other cards in the deck are going to be Firewall. This actually synergizes for once with the evos. The rest of the decks is just a block 4 that doesn't, lose your go again if you banish it to boosting. But in this deck, it actually is playable. But everything else here is going to be boost synergy to help us dig for these evos here. Our sideboard is going to include boom grenades against aggro decks, blue scramble pulse against decks where we need extra blues, and specifically think of things like Guardian or Oldhim, where just having that additional text is relevant. And then in the slower decks as well, you can play the Evo Sentries. These are pretty cool because you can play them first, and then you can block 2 and then block 1. They will not be destroyed. And then these are not bases, but you can play these on top of them. So you can block with all of them into your slower matchups, and then once these are done blocking, you can go ahead and dump these on top of them. And then finally at the end of the game, you can cash these out with your Blade Break, at which point you will just lose any ability to play evos beyond that point. And then for Arcane Barrier, we're just doing 2 here. And so that's the overall list. To Levi here, we open up going first with probably a little bit too good of a hand. I mean, we have a lot of cards to play. If we had a blue here, we actually could double Evo. Unfortunately, we don't though, so we have to make a decision over what we want to actually equip on turn 1. We do have the hero ability just to pitch a blue and play this at instant speed and redraw a new card, so maybe it's not that terrible. This next hand here is interesting because we actually have a cog spitter, so we could start blocking with this on my opponent's turn and then potentially just play it. Strongest Survive is bad for us, so we probably could try blocking like this and then reveal the 0 to 60. We boost our 0 to 60, no Evo hit, my opponent says no blocks. We're probably just going to activate Teklovossen and then play the boots. Playing the boots, we actually draw another 0 to 60 though, so that's actually pretty sweet. So we're probably going to boost our 0 to 60 and then maybe play the Cog Spitter on our arms. We also could Arsenal the Cog Spitter and then get the one last block out of these bases. But with the action point here, I'm kind of leaning towards probably just playing these on the arms. This hand is kind of okay. It does a couple different things. We can block with the data mine and just send back the junkyard dog, or we could block for 6 with these 2, play the data mine on the head, and then Arsenal and the Liquid Cool Mayhem. I think they all kind of work. I guess I'll start by blocking for 6. And then depending on how much damage the follow-up is, then we can think about blocking with this as well. Looks like they actually just pass with that. That's kind of interesting. So we're just gonna, I guess, play the data mine and pass here. So we're on 3 evos, which means that our weapon is now a 1 for 2 with go again, which is pretty solid actually. We could potentially do a couple boosts on the next turn. All right, so they play Howl into Savage Feast, probably just to kind of refuel the yard again. Our hand, we can actually go Leveler into Liquid Cool Mayhem. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that line here where we're going to pitch 1 with this yellow to the Leveler, and then only have to pay 1 for the Liquid Cool Mayhem. They're going to block with Ghostly, probably just to put it in the yard to try to banish. And now we just kind of need like a turn where we're just going to boost a couple times, hopefully, and then hopefully get to 4 evos, and then we should hopefully be able to close the game out. But it is always hard because this is kind of like a fake fridge. Like we can block with this, but once we do, then like a lot of our power cards are now like offline. They're going to play Unworldly Bellow. Oh, man, they hit Ghostly and Howl. That's such a rip. But they're actually just going to play Beast Hulk, that's fine with me. Cashing in this last Liquid Cool Mayhem means that we actually can think about blocking with the fridge here. because I think we've also seen both mechanical strengths. We have, and now we've seen both Liquid Cool Mayhem. So I think we're actually kind of out of Evo payoffs now. So if there ever was a time that it would be okay to start cashing this stuff in, I think it would be here. So they block for 3, they go to 2. I guess the only concern though is once we block with all this equipment, then our leveler becomes pretty awful. We kind of need it to be in that sweet spot with 3, but if we need to, it is okay to just block with this fridge here. All right, so I guess we'll block with the outpace here, but I'm probably gonna activate the headpiece just because I want to put this on top. That way we can boost it off with the sprocket rocket. Although we see the battery pack, so it kind of doesn't actually make a difference. Although actually hitting the battery pack here is better. So we're just gonna block with the charging rods, which kind of sucks because these do block for 2. I'm gonna send Hellhammer. That will put itself in banish, so that is good for them. So I think our turn here is just gonna be sending 4. So we'll go ahead and we'll boost our chess piece. This is pretty solid because now this comes in for 4, as well as just getting us the free, Evo to play from banish. The only hard part though is that if they hold a blue here, I mean like Ghostly plus Howl is just like presenting 7 in the yard. So it's going to be kind of difficult to like actually win the game from this spot, I think. Like their graveyard is just set up like way too well. We have everything. So, I mean, we could block with everything here and just send like Liquid Cool Mayhem. They have to pitch a red here. So I guess maybe they bricked. It's kind of interesting actually, because they opted to put the Graveling in banish. Okay, and they just concede. That's so, okay, so they bricked. They had 3 reds in hand. No, they had 4 because they blocked with the Slaughter Beast. So they pitched to banish the Graveling. I guess the Worldly Bellow was the draw. I guess they could have pitched 2 cards to send the Dread Screamer. If they pitched 2 cards to send the Dread Screamer, what do we do? Because let's see, they're at 1. So if we send the 0 to 60, they have to block with 1 card. If we then follow with the Mechanical Strength, this comes in for 6. They have to give us 2 cards. We could also do the same thing with Liquid Cool Mayhem. It's actually Liquid Cool Mayhem would block everything up if we keep these 3 cards, because we could go Leveler, assuming that we block for 5, so we just like give up literally any equipment here, maybe the chest or whatever, in this 3 block, and we go to 1. This is assuming that they just send the Dread Screamer. We could, on our turn, go Leveler for 2, they block with a card. We go 0 to 60 boost, they have to block with a card. And then we play Liquid Cool Mayhem, they have to block with 2 cards because they're at 1, at which point they just died of Blood Debt. So that's actually crazy that brick actually won us the game, but that's just how it goes sometimes.